tend to wander, so y'all might hear me on that video, but you might not see me.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Want to welcome Melanie Seaman. I appreciate you coming and gonna do the CPR class for us, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I don't think anybody else is coming.
Okay, if they do, we'll catch them up. That won't be a problem.
You might have to talk louder.
I will try my best.
Okay.
If I get too quiet, which is almost never a problem, somebody throw a hand
I'll
up.
raise my hand.
There you go. So I don't normally wear a t-shirt to work, y'all, but I'm leaving here to go teach kids and parents how to buckle safely in the car. So that's why I have my t-shirt on today, so people know who I'm with this afternoon. So thank y'all for having me. For some of y'all, I've been here before and done programs on different things, fall and fire prevention, if you don't remember that. So I'm glad to be back. Always a good group to come here for. Today we're going to talk about hands-only CPR, and I understand y'all have an AED here in the church. Is that right? So we're going to talk about how to use that as well.
You do?
Better tell them where it is too.
I don't know.
Okay, no, we don't.
Okay, maybe we don't. We're going to learn to use it anyway,
All right.
just in case. In case you get one, or you can run across the street, because Woodlawn has two. We're going to learn to use it anyway. It's not hard. So has anybody had a CPR class before? Has it been a while?
Many moons.
All right, if it has been a while, it has changed. And it has changed for the better. It's a lot easier than it was before, easier to remember what to do. So, erase what you already know. And we'll just start over from there. Anytime I teach CPR, I always like to know, if you thought you needed to do CPR, what would make you nervous, or what would make you not want to do it?
Afraid you might hurt the person.
Okay, and what was yours? Mouth to mouth. So, probably about 10 years ago, they did a nationwide survey and asked the same question I just asked you, and that was the overwhelming response, is I don't want to do mouth to mouth on someone else, and I get that. Y'all look like nice folks, but I don't know y'all. So, I wouldn't want to do that either. So they did a big research study that said, what would happen if we took the mouth to mouth out altogether? And what they found is that it works better without the mouth to mouth. So we're going to take that right away. So that won't be a concern anymore. So the concern about hurting somebody, that is a big concern, and this sounds really cold what I'm fixing to say, but it's important that you know. If you're doing CPR on someone, their heart's not working and they're not breathing, what are they? They are dead. You can't hurt them. They don't feel a thing. So whatever you do is not going to make it worse. The only way you can make this situation worse is by doing nothing at all. So it's okay. You won't hurt them. And we'll talk through some of that as we go. Anything else might concern you?
Liability.
Liability. That's a big deal. So there's a law called the Good Samaritan Law that says if you're acting in their best interest and doing something you think to be helpful, even if they do not survive this event, you cannot be held liable for that. So you cannot be sued. Now, if you hit them with your car and now they need CPR, that's different. But if they fall out in Walmart and you go to help them and they don't survive, you are covered by that Good Samaritan Law. Guilt. Guilt, yes. Guilt that is one thing to think about, but here's a different way to think about it. CPR is not going to save everybody. Sometimes it's people's time to go, but we don't know when that time is. And at the end of the day, if I helped and they didn't survive, I'm going to feel a whole lot better than if I stood back here and did nothing. If I gave them the opportunity to survive, I did the best I could. And that's a whole lot better than not doing anything. So we'll talk through, if you come up with something else throughout, if you've not been to a presentation here with me, I'm real laid back. Interrupt me now. You're going to have to remember where I was. Because if I stop and answer your question, I'm going to forget. So you remember where I was, but if you have a question, please ask. So I've been working on the ambulance for 17 years. I think it's 17 years next week, actually. So I've been around for a while. When I first started working EMS, we only did CPR on really old people with lots of medical problems, and it almost never worked. We tried, we gave it our best, but it almost never worked. Over for the last several years, the nationwide trend has been people whose hearts are stopping are getting younger and younger. And a lot of times, they don't have medical problems. So if you have someone who doesn't have medical problems and all of a sudden their heart stops, that's called sudden cardiac arrest, and it is a leading killer of Americans. If you watch the news, you see athletes who fall out in the middle of a game because their heart has stopped. That's sudden cardiac arrest. If you're bored, go to YouTube and type in South Carolina basketball player collapses. Back in early December of last year, there was a South Carolina team playing NC State, and the South Carolina player had played, but he was on the sidelines and fell out. And if you watch that, you can see them do CPR, you can see them shock him, and if you pay attention, when they roll him off the court, he moves his hand because he survived that event. But he's 23 years old and healthy until his heart stopped, and that is happening more often. Part of my job here in the county is I look at every CPR call we run. Doesn't that sound fun? Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is not. But we have followed the nationwide trend, and our folks are getting younger. Our average age of cardiac arrest last year or the year before was 62. I was teaching this at a middle school, and I asked the kids, do y'all have folks walking around your school that are that age? And they were like, no way. I said, yeah, you do. Yes, you do. You have one in here, and it's not me. But their teacher was. So 62 is not old, but that is our average age. We have folks in their 30s and 40s whose hearts are stopping. We've had 2 13-year-olds in our county whose hearts have stopped. So that's why it's important for everybody to know how to do CPR. We might not save everybody, but if we save one, it's worth the time with me. If you save one person, it's worth all the time. I teach CPR. This is my 3rd class this week, and it's Tuesday. And it is worth every minute if somebody saves just one person. So I want to tell you about one of our 13-year-olds, and if you do know any of the stories I tell you today, I do have legal right to tell you. So this 13-year-old healthy kid, football player, wrestler, tall as me, no medical problems, was at his grandma's house one evening and started having some seizure-like activity. He'd never had seizures before, so his grandma called his mom because she didn't really know what to do with that. Mom was close. She came in, and what she walked into was her 13-year-old dead in the floor. His mom had had CPR classes before, not ever done CPR on a real person, but that's what she walked into. Now, she panicked for just a second. Does that ever really help anything? It really doesn't. So she got herself together, and she dialed 911, and she started CPR on her 13-year-old. Now, I've been a paramedic longer than I've been a mama, but I'm pretty sure I would have panicked right there for just a little bit. But she did an awesome job, and she started CPR. When we do CPR, we're really not trying to save a heart. We're trying to save a brain. So the heart's a muscle. Its job is to pump blood round and round. Most important spot for that to get to is the brain. When a heart stops, we've got 5 to 7 minutes before brain cell death starts to occur. Once brain cells die, they're done. We can't fix that. So when we do CPR early, we can keep that from happening. So this kid had CPR for 75 minutes. So his mom and then the fire department, and then we got there and we took him to the hospital. 75 minutes is a long time. If you have an older person at 75 minutes, they will never survive that. But you know, he's 13, he hadn't had as many cheeseburgers and milkshakes and done all the other horrible things we've done to our bodies, and nobody wanted to stop. So at 75 minutes, his heart started working on its own. They sent him to Baptist and said, we have no idea what will happen. We don't know what his brain activity will look like, because that is a long time. So he was unresponsive for 11 days. His mom sat at his side for 11 days. Pretty shortly after he woke up, he was hitting on the nurses at the hospital. So pretty normal 13-year-old, right? Pretty normal. He is now 17. He has his driver's license. He's in high school. If you did not know something happened to him, you would never know. He's just as normal as you and I are. And his heart surgeon told his mom, you saved his life. We do great things in an ambulance. They do great things at the hospital. But it's the people who are there in those first few minutes that save the brain. And that's our goal. We want to save people to be exactly like they were yesterday. So it's the people who are there that make the biggest difference. And those stories are happening more often because people are willing to jump in and do CPR. That was really important for his family for a lot of reasons, mostly because he survived. But his dad died in his mid-30s. Nobody saw him go into cardiac arrest, and nobody was there when his heart stopped, and he did not survive that event. The dad's sister died a year later from the same thing. So when this kid survived, it was very obviously a genetic issue, and they were able to find the genetic markers, so when he has children, they can test them, and they can fix the problem before it happens. He also has a twin, so they were able to test her, and they were going to fix the problem, but she didn't have it, thank goodness. So that's an awesome story, right? I love it. I was able to bring him to a couple classes, but he really hates it. He doesn't like people looking at him, and I can only bribe him with so much food, which I do, but he doesn't like to come out much anymore. So that's why it's important. Most of the time when we do CPR, it's on somebody we know, and we want to give them the very best chance. We teach CPR to 4th graders and up, so if a 4th grader can do it, I know that we can. I will tell you, when I'm done talking, Mark and George, that's George in the box, they love CPR. They would love for you to try. If you have hip, knee, back problems, you don't have to get in the floor to try on Mark and George. They will go on a table or in a chair so you can get the feel of it. In real life, if you have problems getting to the floor, I want you to throw yourself down anyway. And you do CPR, and we'll get you up after a while. But for practice in here, you don't have to do that. I can get you up if you want to try, but it might be a little hairy. So CPR is good if you need it. It's not great if you don't. So we need to know who really needs CPR. So if you've had a CPR class before, this may be the only thing that has stayed the same in the last 25 years. If you find somebody who looks asleep where they shouldn't be or when they shouldn't be, go check on them. Most of the time people don't take naps in the bathroom or the kitchen or the aisle at Walmart, although that happens sometimes. We're going to check on them anyway. And we're going to shake and shout. That's the part that stayed. So you got to be loud and you got to touch them. Say, hey, are you okay? So when I first took this class, I was quite young. And I thought this was stupid. I thought, I'm going to know what a dead person looks like. But I'd never seen one up until that point. So when I started working here, we got a call, and it was a night shift. We got there, and the lady said, I've been yelling at my husband. He won't answer me. I think he's dead. So he was laid out in his recliner, and he looked dead enough to me. I was pretty excited. He was getting ready to get some CPR. But my partner was smarter than me, and that's the only time I say that because I married him. So it's the only time he gets credit for being smarter than me. But he walked up to this guy, and he said, hey, the dude came up out of the chair fighting. So his wife had aggravated him, and he took his hearing aids out. He was asleep. So you can't make this stuff up, y'all. She stood at the door and just yelled his name. He didn't hear her. So he did not need CPR. He would be unhappy if we did it. So that shake and shout is super important. If someone does not respond when you do that, that's a problem, right? So if you forget everything else I say today, remember this part. Now's the time to call 911. If you forget everything else I say, they will help you. They are very good at listening to what you say, to listening to what's happening in the background, and helping you figure out what's going on and what you need to do. A lot of people get real irritated when they call 911 because they're like, just send me some help. What you don't know happening in the background is whoever's helping you is talking to you on the phone, but there's somebody else sending you an ambulance. They don't want to put you on hold. You think you're going to be a little stressed out? You're going to be super mad if they say, please hold. So they're going to talk to you and somebody else is sending help. So remember that part, call 911. Now we want to know, is this person breathing? We know that heart and lungs work together. If one stops, the other one will. So a long time ago, we would teach people, look, listen, and feel, and check for a pulse. That is hard to do if that's not something you do every day and you think they might be dead. So all we want to know is, are they breathing? So we want to look for chest movement. If it makes you feel better to put a hand on their chest to see if it's moving, that's fine too. If it is not moving, or they're only making an odd noise a couple times a minute, that is not breathing, and we're going to start CPR. So when we're doing CPR, we're doing the job of the heart. So we're squeezing the heart. Do you think we can do that effectively on a bed or on a couch or in a car?
No.
Nope. We do CPR on the floor. So how do we get people to the floor? How do you think? Pull them, roll them, whatever. Whatever we do, we're going to do it fast. And this is where it's important to know you can't hurt them. So grab them by the ankles, jerk them down on the floor. If they hit their head on the way down, it's fine. We'll get to that when we get to that. But that's not the biggest concern right now. Hit their head on the floor, it's fine. If you need to roll them, that's fine. Just make sure they land on their back. Now, a lot of people say, I just don't think I can move somebody. Especially if they're big, I can't do that. That may be the case, but you need to try. Have you seen videos where mothers pick cars off their kids? It's not because they're bodybuilders. It's because adrenaline kicks in, and you can do way more than you think you can. And in this situation, that will happen. So you grab their feet and jerk them. Now, if they still don't move, it's fine. Do the best with what you got. But you gotta try. Most of the time, they'll come if you grab them by the ankles. It won't be pretty, but that's okay. Somebody asked not long ago, why don't you pick them up from the shoulders so they don't hit their head? The answer is that's because it's the heavy end. It will take longer and it is harder to do. So get them to the floor best way you can. If they are in a small spot like a bathroom or between a bed and a couch, grab them by the ankles again, pull them to where you have room to work. Now, in real life, I do not take time to put padding down for my knees. But my knees are getting older, and he's a mannequin, so we're going to put a little padding down for my knees. Luckily, Mark is easy to move. So I'm going to come out here so y'all can see me a little bit. So we're going to get them down in the floor, then we're going to get down with them. If you use the proper body mechanics, you can do this. If you practice in a little bit, you might say this is hard. It is, but in real life, you can do it. So get down in the floor with them. Like I told you, if you have a hard time getting down on the floor, throw yourself down anyway. There have been many a times I have scooted people over, and when we're done, we get them up. So down on the floor on one side or the other. Doesn't matter which one, but not at their head, not at their feet, on the side. You got to be up on your knees, sitting back on your feet won't work, squatting won't work. Not for any length of time. So up on your knees, right beside them. You do not have to remove clothing for CPR. I just leave Mark's jacket off so you can see where my hands are. So we're going to draw an imaginary line from armpit to armpit. It goes right across about nipple line. So where that imaginary line meets the bone in the center of the chest is where we're going to put our hands. We're going to use the heel of our hand. You don't have strength in your fingers. So use the heel of your hand, one on top of the other. And it does not matter which one's on the top. It's just whatever is more comfortable for you. The bottom hand needs to be flat. Some people will try to do it like this. It's not wrong, but it'll hurt your hand. So the bottom hand needs to be flat. You can lace your top hand if you want to, but one on top of the other like that will work too. Lock your elbows, keep them straight. You see on TV, they do CPR like this. That's because those actors are not really dead. But we're going to do it for real. So lock your elbows. And then we're going to compress the chest 2 to 2.5 inches. Now, nobody's getting down there with a ruler, but we got to think about what we're doing. We're trying to squeeze the heart between our hands and the floor. So if I do this, I'm not squeezing anything. So you really got to push it. In the first couple of compressions, you will probably break ribs, and it's okay. Break the ribs. The job of the ribs is to protect your heart and lungs. That's what we're trying to squeeze. So if you break them, it makes your job a little bit easier. I've also never met a single person that survived this that minded the broken ribs. I had one lady come into a class I taught, and I asked her in front of the group, I said, did they break ribs? She said, oh yes, but it's okay. I can deal with broken ribs. They give you medicine for that. And she had brought her mother to the class, and her mother said, oh yes, she really enjoyed that medicine. She asked the preacher to get up into bed with her. She didn't know I was going to learn that part of the story. But break the ribs and it's okay. It's very rare that causes a problem. If it pokes a hole in something, it'll be the lung. And that's really an easy problem to fix. So it's okay. Break it. We're going to compress their chest 100 to 120 times a minute. And that number is important. American Heart Association teaches us to do that to the beat of the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And that does work if you sing it just like the Bee Gees. But you cannot teach that to 4th graders. They don't know it. So, Everybody knows row, row, row your boat, right? That song works too. So, y'all sing that for me.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Y'all did pretty good. I do that in some groups and it's not good. It's like, you don't get to the end of that song. I did that at, I can't remember what middle school it was the other day, and I thought, ooh, this is not chorus. But y'all did pretty good. So we're gonna do that to the beat of row, row, row your boat. And that gets you the right number you need. If you'll notice, my hands did not bounce. My hands never left the chest. Some people will want to bounce. You never get your hands back to the right spot, and if you bounce down here, they will throw up, and that does make it worse for you. So we don't want to do that. All right, I'm gonna come back up here so y'all can see me. And that's it. Whole lot easier than it used to be, right? You'll do those compressions until that person moves or talks, or somebody gets there to help you. A couple years ago, I would have told you they won't move or talk, except for it keeps happening. Because people are doing really good CPR. We had one man whose heart stopped at home. His wife started CPR. The fire department got there and shocked him. We got there. We were putting a tube in his throat to breathe for him, and he bit it. So we pulled it out, and he said, "My chest hurts." Yes, sir, I bet it does. But good to see you. We had another gentleman who was working outside with his high school age grandkids, and his heart stopped. They started CPR. We got there. We were doing some things, and he started talking. Sitting up talking. So it very well may happen. If it does, you did great, but don't leave. Because something happened, it might happen again. So stay put in case you're needed again, and of course we're already on our way because you already called us. We recommend if you have somebody with you that you change every 2 minutes so you get a break. Now if you need a break before that 2 minutes and you have somebody else there, it's okay to switch then. If you don't have anybody, and you're tired, guess what? You gotta keep trucking. And you can do it, I promise. Because that adrenaline will kick in and it will help you. So easy enough, right? Easy for me to say here on Mark the Mannequin. In real life, I know that it's not easy. I know that most of the time this is gonna be on somebody we know. But I do know if we try to help, regardless of the end of the situation, even if they don't survive, if you try to help, that is going to be of at least a little bit of comfort because you tried to give them their best chance. So that's CPR part. And CPR can work by itself. If we are at a location with an AED or automated external defibrillator, that can help too, but it cannot work alone. It works with CPR, not by itself. So we'll talk about that right quick. A lot of people think that when a heart stops, it's a heart attack. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not. A heart attack is a blockage in a vessel somewhere. And it is a problem. I'm not saying it's not a big deal. It is. That's just not usually what it is. Most of the time when a heart stops, it's an electrical problem. So your heart's a muscle, but it works off its own electrical system. So as you're sitting here, you're getting little shocks all the time. Sometimes that goes nuts. So if you have a smartphone or a computer and it goes crazy, what do? You turn it off, turn it back on, right? So you restart it. That's usually what the heart needs. It needs a restart. And an automated external defibrillator is that restart. You do not have to be scared of these devices. It will not work unless it needs to. This one doesn't really shock anyway because it's a training one. But if I had a real one, I could put it on me and hit the shock button all day long. It's not going to shock me because I don't need it. So you don't have to be scared to put it on somebody. If you put it on there and it doesn't want to shock, it's no big deal. You have not harmed them at all. To use the AED, you do have to remove the shirt. So if you can clear the room, that's the nice thing to do. But if you can't, do it anyway. I taught CPR the other day at the government center, and that's where I work. So I said, you know, if it's me, try to clear the room. But if you can't, and I survive, I can find a new job. No big deal. So do what you can. We're just going to use their chest, so that's all you have to expose. I'm going to fall over that, sure as the world. And I can't fall because I already taught y'all how to prevent that. So just pull the shirt up and out of your way. To be honest, this will be helpful. Are we using their face at all? So pull their shirt up right over their face. If you can't see it anymore, that makes it a little less stressful right at this moment. So it's a little bit helpful. If it's a lady, the bra's got to get out of the way too. Try teaching that to 8th grade boys. That usually comes with all kind of questions. But just pull it up. We're not gonna roll her over and unhook it, that takes too long. Just pull it up out of the way however you can move it. A lot of times right before a heart stops, people will get very sweaty. So if their chest is wet, dry it off. If their shirt has not got sweaty wet yet, pull it back down, dry them off. If not, you can use whatever is handy. If people have a medication patch on their chest, it does not matter what kind of medicine is. Just pull the patch off and wipe the medicine off. Some folks have implanted pacemakers or defibrillators. If you're doing CPR, it is not working. And this machine can work over it, so you can still use it. If you've never seen an implanted device, they're usually about that big, and they're right under the skin. Most of the time they're right here, but occasionally somebody might have one over here. It's not a big deal. We're just not going to put our stickers right on top of it. If you pull their shirt up and there's something under their skin and you think, oh my word, what is that? Just assume it's an implanted device, because it probably is. The biggest issue we run into, or the most often issue we run into, is very hairy people. So I have to be careful. It never fails if I teach a ladies group at a church, they will point somebody out. And that's weird. So I usually tell them, don't point at anybody. So if you pull their shirt up and they are regularly hairy, this is going to work just fine. If they look like they're still wearing a sweater, we got to do a little work. So in most AEDs, there's a cheap little razor. And we're just going to give them a quick dry shave where these stickers go. Someone asked me once, well, won't that be itchy? I hope so, because that means it worked. So we just keep a cheap little razor in there. Give them a real quick dry shave. There are a whole bunch of different brands of AEDs, but they all work basically the same. It's like Ford and Chevy. They look a little different, but they work basically the same. And this machine will tell you everything it wants you to do. That's what makes it automatic, and that's what makes it so easy. When you get the machine out, doesn't matter what brand it is, the stickers that come with it will have pictures on them. And the pictures say where they want you to put things. All these are our fancy stickers, but you got to follow what the picture says. And I'll hold Mark up in just a second so you can see. So one goes just to the right of the bone in the center of the chest. The other one goes right under the left arm. So it's kind of hard to tell on him, but it'll be right here. So if the machine decides it wants to shock, when you hit the button, it's going to shoot electricity from here to here with the heart right in the middle. So when you put these stickers on, just rub your hand across it, make sure it's stuck, because we want the electricity to go through the heart, not over the skin. So just press them right down. Then we're going to turn this device on and listen to what it says.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest. Plug in pads connector next to analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient.
So it's looking to see what the heart's doing, just don't touch, because then it'll look at your heart.
Shock advised.
So when it says that, it will start making a loud racket while it's charging,
Stay clear of patient.
so everybody knows what's happening.
Deliver shock now.
So we're going to
Press
check,
the orange
make sure
button
nobody's
now.
touching. Then we're going to hit the shock button.
Shock delivered. Begin CPR.
In real life, we would leave that machine on, but I'm not talking over that beeping. So have you seen on TV where they take the things and rub them together and shock somebody? This is the same thing. It's just the safe version. A lot of people were getting shocked with these things that didn't need to be shocked. The go button was right here, and people get nervous and hit it too soon. So this is the safe version. So we'll turn the machine on. It says analyzing, stand clear, just don't touch. If it says shock advised, it'll make a loud racket. People will come and help you when they hear that racket, so that's a good thing. And then it'll say stand clear and hit the orange button. Just make sure nobody's touching. If you are touching when you hit the orange button, it'll hurt. It'll hurt you. So don't do that. You don't have to go away, just take your hands off. Hit the orange button. If you've seen on TV where they shock people, they jerk a lot like that. That happens in real life. It's just the muscles responding to electricity, and it's no big deal. As soon as that shock is delivered, we're going to do 2 minutes of CPR. Even if it worked, we're going to help the heart. So have you ever had a car run out of gas? When you put gas back in it, it doesn't run exactly right until gas gets back in all the places it's supposed to be, right? The heart's the same way. It's had some kind of issue, If we shock it back into working, we're gonna help it for those 2 minutes until it gets to working like it's supposed to. You don't have to count the 2 minutes because the machine will do that for you. In 2 minutes, it'll start that whole thing over again and it'll talk to you some more. It doesn't matter how many times it tells you to hit the button. If it says to shock them, you can shock them. We have one lady, and there's more than one, this one just sticks out to me. She was shocked 12 times, and she is alive and well. So if it tells you to shock, hit the button. No big deal. Yes, sir.
So you always put them on the floor before you do the AED?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So get them to the floor so you got room to work and a hard surface. And that's it. That's all you have to do. It sounds simple enough in here, doesn't it?
A lot of things to remember though.
It is a lot, but to keep it simple, if somebody is not, they look asleep, when they shouldn't be or where they shouldn't be, check on them. If they're not breathing, call 911, get them to the floor, and push hard and fast in the center of the chest. Row, row, row your boat. In real life, when I do this, I'm singing the song in my head. Now, not out loud, although I have been known to do that. Most of the time, it's in my head, and I sing the song, because that keeps me on track. Yes, ma'am?
If there's an AED in the building and you're the only one there with the person who's now on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
do you do any CPR before you run to get the AED, or what do you do?
If you see them collapse, go get the AED.
Okay,
If you find them, do CPR.
okay,
Because the AED only has a limited amount of time that it's gonna work.
okay.
If we see them collapse, it will more than likely work.
I know it's been probably 10 years since I had classes. I used to have quite a few classes.
Mm-hmm.
But when did they do away with the raising and clearing the throat and all that stuff?
That happened about 5-8 years ago, but if you take a class through the Red Cross, they'll still teach you that. Red Cross and American Heart cannot play in the same sandbox. I wish they'd all get on one page and make life.
But you know, of all the classes I had, I never heard a nurse say about broken bones except for small children.
Well, a lot of people won't tell you because it messes with people, but I think you need to know. And really, on kids, you're less likely to break their bones because they're spongy.
I saw a lot of broke bones when I worked at the hospital and they did CPR on elderly people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
With an elderly person, you usually break more than one rib.
absolutely.
What's the percentage of that?
I don't know. I don't know the percentage. But if they're 30-ish or older, you'll probably break at least one. And it's okay. They don't mind. If they survive this, the rib will heal. It'll hurt, but it'll heal. And that's okay. Any other questions?
So you're saying that the American Red Cross still teaches that? Do they still teach you with the tape and all that mess?
I don't know about the tape, but I'm pretty sure that they still teach the breaths.
Do you, in an ambulance, do you have any kind of aid that you might use instead of just your hands like some?
We do not.
You do not?
Some services do,
And what
but
would
we
that
do
be?
not. There's a couple different devices. The one most services are using now are called a Lucas device. And it's something you slide under the person and it looks like a plunger is really what it looks like. And you strap their hands to it. So they're laying there and they look like they're doing CPR on themselves. But it's really just the device working. For us, we don't have those because of our first response system. We usually have enough people there to do effective CPR. And those machines are not more effective.
And I was just thinking when you were demonstrating, it's like if you had a paperback book or something, would that,
It doesn't really help.
wouldn't, like, between you and, wouldn't make any difference?
Hands are there.
Hands are better, okay.
How can you tell the difference between a heart attack, a seizure, and a stroke?
Well,
Because that's what I faced the other day.
that is kind of a long answer. And so if y'all didn't hear, the question was, how can you tell the difference between a heart attack, a seizure, and a stroke? To do that with none of my equipment is difficult. The way we do it is we do EKGs and we test different stuff. But if somebody's having a seizure, you can have a seizure for a whole lot of different reasons. If they've never had a seizure before, it very well could be a stroke or something else going on. So always call 911 for that. With a heart attack, the symptoms we look for and that they show you on the commercials on TV are chest pain. But for some people, if you say pain, that's not what they have. They have chest pressure. and that's different than pain. So we always ask if you have pain or pressure. You may also have pain in the jaw or down the arm. You may not have that, but you might. Sweating, nausea, that comes with heart attacks a lot. With strokes, one thing we do is if you think somebody might be having a stroke, look at their face. If their face is not symmetrical, so when they smile, they only smile on one side, that's a sign of a stroke. Now for me, if I go to somebody's house, I usually ask, and it sounds bad till I explain myself, I'll ask their family members, does their face look right to you? Because some people just don't smile the same on both sides. But if you're with somebody and you know them, that's easier to see. You can also have them hold their hands up, palms up, have them close their eyes. If one drifts, and they don't know that it's drifting, that is a sign of a stroke. They have slurred speech, that's a sign of a stroke. With any of those signs and you're just not sure, always call us, because we have more tools at our disposal in our ambulance to figure out the difference.
I had a stroke many years ago, and I was just sitting in the canteen talking to one of my employees. And I looked at the clock and I couldn't see the half of it. I mean, you know, pressure and all that, and of course, Dr. Long was in bars, and he told me out to get me to, have it checked out. That's what they considered was a mini stroke, but I thought that for about an hour, I said, all I could see was like half a clock, no matter how I turned my head, all I could see was half of it.
And that's pretty normal, and strokes have different signs for different people. The hard thing about taking care of people in emergencies is patients don't read the textbooks. So no two patients are the same. They all present differently. But we do have some different tools so we can look for different things.
Y'all came pretty fast that day.
Good.
Y'all were there in 15 minutes.
Our average response time for emergency calls is 8 minutes or less, and we do our best to do that most of the time. I will tell you, if we're running a CPR call, we do it a little differently than we used to. Used to, we would throw people in the ambulance and rush them to the hospital. We don't do that anymore. If we're in a place we can control, like a home or this room, I can control that, we may stay put for 30 to 45 minutes because it is the best thing for the person. The hospital doesn't do anything different than what we do. We give all the same medications, we do all the same procedures. But I can tell you, it's hard to do effective CPR at 65 miles an hour. The ambulances are pretty, they don't have good shocks. So it is hard to do. We also can't do effective CPR moving someone from in their house to the ambulance. You know, on TV, they get up on the stretchers and they ride on the side. That looks pretty, but it doesn't really work.
Now, when I worked in the nursing home and we'd call EMS on the patient to have them taken to, they may sit out front 30 minutes to an hour before they ever left with that patient.
Sometimes, and that is the best thing to do. And a lot of times, if we're doing CPR especially, we let families stay. Used to, we would rush them into a different room and say, y'all don't need to see this. But what we've learned, it is better if they do see it. Because if I come to your home or your church, and I'm doing CPR on someone you know, and I send you away, and in 45 minutes I come out and tell you there's nothing else we can do and we're going to stop. You have no idea what's happening there, right? But if I keep you with me, usually we keep family right there. We explain everything that's happening. So when it's time to stop, they understand we've done everything we can do. I've had wives tell me before, honey, it's time to stop. Because they knew that we've done everything. So that is something a little bit new over the last couple of years. So if we don't rush to the hospital, it's because we're doing the best thing for the patient. Now, if I'm in a place I can't control, and I can't be safe, we go to the ambulance. Like we've had people in O'Charlie's. That is not, I can't control all the people in there. So we do go to the ambulance for that. But if you see that happening, that is a good thing.
But if you find someone and you detect any breath at all, don't do CPR.
If they are breathing, you do not do CPR.
Even if it's shallow.
If they're breathing, it kind of depends on how many times. If they're only making an odd noise that you think might be breathing, but they're only doing it a couple times a minute, it's probably not breathing.
Okay.
But if they are breathing somewhat regularly, even if it's shallow, we do not start CPR.
But like getting back to her question, if someone is responsive enough to see that their face change or to raise, that's obviously not a heart
Right.
attack, and CPR shouldn't be done.
Correct.
Should you slap them or not?
That's me.
Depends on how much you like them or don't like them.
And then he was up to
me what to do and it was about my brother, I'd tell her to slap him too. But I'm not gonna slap anybody. I don't, the shake and shout is just as effective.
Yeah, but he didn't come through with me hollering.
Well, you know what, sometimes you just gotta do what you think's best at the time, and that's okay.
He did when I slapped him.
Well, then it worked,
Yeah.
and you got what you needed.
My sister Phyllis told me I shouldn't have done that. They said Jan had seizures or anything not to slap her, but he come to when I slapped him, but he didn't know who I was.
Right.
He had a wild look like a wild man.
Right, with seizures, a lot of people do have a period after their seizure, it's called a postictal period. But it's where they are very confused. If you ask them their name, sometimes they can't tell you their name, but if you give them a few minutes, they might can tell you their first name. Sometimes that takes a little
He
bit.
said Obama was the president.
But sometimes, several minutes later,
Yeah.
it's a different situation. Yes, ma'am?
About 30 years ago, my husband had seizures, and when I called 911, they told me to turn him on his side.
Yep. So
That
when
was
someone's
curious.
having a seizure, they're not breathing, and they will produce a lot of saliva. Sometimes they'll bite their tongue, so they might have a little blood in their mouth. We turn them on their side so all that stuff can get out, so they don't choke on it.
Yeah.
But that is the right thing to do.
Yeah, my Yeah. son split, cut his tongue, half an inch right here.
Mhm. And a long time ago, they taught people if someone's having a seizure, you put something in their mouth so they can't swallow their tongue. Y'all, the good Lord tied that down.
Oh,
You can't swallow it. I mean, it's right there. In 17 years, I've never seen somebody who's had that, cut where it's not tied down. Do not put anything in their mouth if they're having a seizure because they can choke on it. And if it's your finger, they might keep it.
I seen nurses years ago
Mhm.
put a spoon in
Yeah.
if someone was having a seizure.
And they do that to keep their airway open, but they're not breathing anyway, so it's okay. But they will, if it's just a simple seizure, when they stop having a seizure, they will start breathing again. Y'all have good questions. Got any more? Y'all are testing me this morning.
I believe the last time I had a CPR class, and it was a certification class, it said that once you're certified, you're legally obligated to help someone if you find them, say, in a public area. Is that still true?
It is kind of true, it's kind of not true. So, for me, I am legally obligated because I have more training than just a CPR certification. But if all you have is a CPR certification and there's something going on and you don't feel like you can, if there is a reason you can't do it, so if somebody's out in the yard and there's bees everywhere and you're allergic to bees, you can't do that because it's not safe. If they're in a roadway because there's been a car crash and the traffic's still going, that's not safe. So if there is a reason, you're not technically required to do anything.
And if your certification has expired.
Right, but you don't have to be certified to help somebody either. I teach certification classes, so, people ask me, do I need a certification card or does the hour class work? It doesn't matter to me where you learn CPR. If you know how to do CPR, you can do it. You don't have to, but you can. So, I've never had anybody ask to see my card after I do CPR on them.
If you did do CPR on someone and then they died, could they sue you and
No.
say you shouldn't have done it?
Nope, you're covered by Good Samaritan law.
Okay.
Now, I'm different. If I go to Walmart in my personal vehicle with my kids and somebody needs CPR and I don't do it, they can sue me. Isn't that terrible?
Yes,
Because I have more training. So I am legally obligated. But I would do it anyway.
Moral obligation if you're not certified.
That's right. And you don't have to have a class. When you call 911, they can talk you through what to do. And they're very good at that. Any other questions?
Hey, you'd be surprised at the 911 center, they have a protocol for about any circumstance that you can imagine.
We
They have
do.
step-by-step procedures that they tell over the phone.
And people get very aggravated because they'll call, and when you call 911, they do ask a lot of questions. They do that for a reason. To be honest, for us, going emergency traffic with lights and sirens is not safe. People do not know what to do. When we come down the road, they dart this way and that, it's really not that
It's
safe.
scary.
It is. So we don't turn the lights and sirens on if we don't need to, just for the safety issue. Because, I mean, even if somebody else causes a crash, if they hit an ambulance, it's going to be a problem for them. We don't want that to happen. So they ask questions to decide, do I need to turn my lights and sirens on or not? And they also ask to see if they need to send more help. So our fire departments and rescue squads in this county are EMT trained. So if we need more help, there's more of them. They can generally get to people a little bit faster. So they ask questions to know, do I need to send them or not? For the same reason, we don't send everybody on every call because of the safety issue. So when they ask questions and people get aggravated, they're doing it for a reason. And usually they've already sent you the help you need about 3 or 4 questions in. Any other questions? All right, thank y'all so much for having me back. I love coming to do these programs, so I appreciate y'all having me back.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.